Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime, and I am your host as always, Professor Prime. So I wanted to talk about quantity and quality, and specifically in regards to analysis. So when most people think quantitative analysis, they think of something as it's subjective, right? And whereas qualitative would be subjective, and I think what you really want to do is, if you can, look at both because there's some pretty cool interplay that you could observe by looking at quantitative data and qualitative data. Information is information, and how we use it, that's up to us. And with quantitative analysis, when you think about that, you think about, well, how can I deal with things in terms of numbers, in terms of statistics, in terms of being able to compute this or that, and kind of just strip things down to the numbers. And I think that can be very useful, and it can be valid and reliable if it's set up to be that way, because it's like that quantitative data is only as good as the tools that you're using and what you're measuring. So you want to be careful with that, and then you want to be able to tell a tale with it, because you might be collecting this data and that data and be able to talk about like the numbers with it, but it's like, but what are you trying to say with it? And if you're doing a good job though, you can say something honest and something useful, but it doesn't always go that way. So it's interesting to think about with that, because the idea is like the method should be objective, but there's so much that goes into that. And then with qualitative analysis, you think about it usually in terms of it being subjective, and it might be tempting to like cast that aside, but the truth is, right, like we're still getting information that we can use and like we can experiment with. And I think it can be pretty useful too, because we're trying to understand how something works. We might want to see why something worked well or didn't work well, why something was right or wrong, and it might be something that we can't necessarily see through numbers. And I think that's pretty cool too. And, naturally being careful with that and trying to tell a tale. And I think, at least for me, in my personal experience, one way that they've come together is like when I was running a tutoring center, which I did for about 2 years. Like, I ran qualitative data and quantitative data, and I want to start with the quantitative though. Like, so I would do things like see how many people are coming in, and and when, and how many people should we have on board, and just seeing how the numbers were like week to week, semester to semester, year to year, and doing all these different sort of comparisons, and like seeing, well, what was our top class and all that good stuff. And there's a lot of information that can be gained from there, but there's also a lot of information that could be gained qualitatively, because it's like, well, why did this class do so well? In addition to that, like, well, what about feedback? Like, how was the center doing in accordance to students? Like, how did their tutoring sessions go? Things along those lines. And you're able to tell a tale with that too, in terms of hey, like, well, what did they learn, if they were satisfied or not? And I think when you're looking at data, if you can do something that's quantitative, great. If you could do something qualitative, great. If you could do something that combines the two, where you're able to get as much information as possible, I think that's even better. So it's just something to think about. Like, I don't think that one is necessarily better than the other. Different situations might call for quantitative analysis over qualitative analysis, and other situations might require qualitative analysis over quantitative analysis. But to me, the best situations are ones where you can apply both. And then, even with all that information, you still want to be able to put things in context and tell a tale and know what kind of tale that you're telling. And I think whatever type of analysis that you're doing, the stories that you're able to tell with that information, that's key. And there's so many different games that you can play with that. So it's just like, use your analysis skills wisely, explore the world, say some things, and just make sure that you're being careful. That being said, I'll see you all in the next video. I hope this gave some food for thought. Professor Prime out.